we're having to be pretty determined. Tonight in our interview with Krishnarjuna, we started on Facebook. We've jumped over to Instagram and we're having technical difficulties there, so we closed the presentation. Now we're going to start again. Here he is. So I want to add him. Hopefully everything will be okay now. Here he is.
Any background noise?
Oh, that's so nice. Now I can just hear you normally.
Third time's a charm. Third time is a charm.
Very nice. Let's see if it goes this time. Okay, without any more introductions, any more chit chat, let's just delve into the topic. So I'm going to ask you some difficult questions here, Krishnarjuna. I hope you've had your supper.
I haven't actually, but anyway, let's get into it. I'll tuck into this instead.
Okay, well, if your like blood pressure rises or your blood sugar gets low, then you may have to whack in some chapter or something. Okay, I don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, so it's a light topic tonight. I'm just talking about the structure of society, the history of our democracy, the failings of liberalism and different sociological problems that we're facing these days. So just kind of a light supper of philosophical discussion.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got a couple of queries. I see lots of things in the news like, I don't know, democracy these days is kind of, not just these days, but since forever, is touted as like the perfection, the goal of life. It's the best system that has ever been there. If you're not living in a democracy, you know, you're very behind the times. And I just feel like it's a bit of a whitewash, you know. It's just like, it's just kind of like, you know, democracy is good, but we don't really look behind it. Like, what does it actually mean? Like, are we actually living in a democracy? Do we actually have choices? And is democracy, even if it works well, which I doubt, is it the best system to use in a society? And maybe you're a good-looking young man. Maybe you can tell us something about that.
Well, yeah, thank you for putting all of society's systemic structural problems squarely on my shoulders to talk about. I guess, yes, if we take democracy, and I guess my way of looking at it is that there's kind of three different parts to how we can evaluate democracy. It's not just a question of, you know, there's the concept of democracy, then there's the protocols within democracy, and then there's the actual thing that it achieves. You know, you can judge a thing by it achieves. And I think no matter what angle or what perspective you look at it, they're kind of very obvious failings. I mean, all right, I guess my position can really, a good starting point is to think about the legendary defender of British democracy. I mean, in modern Britain, who is that name that comes up above all else when Britain's democracy and sovereignty was at greatest danger? He stood up with his big cigar and chubby fingers, single-handedly fought them off. He's also got a namesake in the insurance world.
Super Ted.
Super Ted! No, it's Churchill. No. Churchill. And Churchill, who is lauded, especially in Britain, he was the guy that saved British democracy. His opinion of democracy was, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except all others that have been tried. So his point is that, okay, this is just the best of a bad bargain. It's hardly a glowing endorsement, right? And what led him to that kind of understanding? I mean, and I think at its most obvious, at its most fundamental, when you've got an important task at hand, you want the most skilled person performing that task. You know, if you're about to go into triple bypass surgery, you don't want like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire kind of situation. And it's like, do I cut the left one? Do I cut the right? You know, phone a friend, 50-50. No, this guy should go in there with a game plan and have done it again and have the right tutelage again and again and again and again. Not, I'm going to go with the left one, Chris. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Cuts. Oh, and if you think about it, again, I saw a video recently of a 747. There was a false takeoff in California. There was two engines. The right one burst into flames. Who do you want behind? Who do you want as a pilot? You know, do you think you should take a poll? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we've lost an engine. I'm not really sure what to do, so we're going to conduct a poll. And like the survey's in, and some guy saying, "Oh, do a barrel roll." I saw it on Top Gun. That worked out really well. You know, and jokes aside, the polity have make decisions which affect every single aspect of our life, our private life, our social life, our family life, our education, our health. They don't just need to be expert in one field. They need to be broad-minded enough to be expert in all of these fields and see how they interact with each other. So to have a situation where it's just, let's take a poll, you can see there's a fatal flaw right there. You want to have expert thinkers who have deeply gone into the subject matter, deeply gone into, you know, what are the vital ingredients that a society needs? So, yeah, I mean, even from a conceptual level, I think that it's...
So you're saying that just the fact that people are voting who don't necessarily know about how society should be ideally structured, that's like a fundamental flaw, right, of democracy?
I mean, I think yes. And then again, to quote Churchill one more time, and this might not go down so well. He said, the biggest argument against democracy, right, can be found if you spend 5 minutes talking to an average voter. I.e. that
you didn't say that, right? Churchill said that.
I didn't say. You said it. You Google it. I mean, you can trust Google. Yeah, he said it. He said spend 5 minutes with the average voter. And to be honest, it's not. People have responsibilities. You know, pillar to post. You're having to run just to maintain your family. Do you really have time to sit down and think about the wider implications of your vote? So, I mean, the voter side of it is there. But the other side of it is, who are the candidates? What is the scrutiny for the candidate? You know, people will be up in arms if the wrong football manager is appointed to certain football clubs. I mean, up in arms. There'll be queuing, there'll be protests, there'll be banners. And, but on the, we've got a visitor.
Ati Sinduri. It's like the walking stick. One child removed from the scene. Anyway, carry on. He'll soon be removed.
So, you know, it's what's the criteria by which these candidates are selected? What is the prerequisite? I mean, you've got to be over 18. I think is the only selection criteria. You wouldn't have that for a football manager. You can go and protest in the street, but then if it's, oh, this person's going to be our local constituent, he's going to be making decisions which affect the rest of our life. Well, he's over 18. Oh, you're in. Pulse. You're in. And it is, of course, that is a bit facetious. You boil it down, and there's got to be some mechanisms. But in terms of ensuring, if this is the most important decision-making body in a country, in a continent, in a society, with implications that not just affect the immediate people, but generations to come. And we're not going to have a rigorous sorting criteria. And, you know, don't get me wrong, right? People think that if you're against democracy, you must be for this kind of, you know, they have it in their mind like a dystopian...
Tyranny or something, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, concentration camps. No, the point is, it's not that we think we want to get rid of democracy because we want to oppress people. We want to at least reevaluate, reassess democracy so we can improve it. Why not? I mean, why not look at it critically?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the democratic process, right? That we should evaluate it and think about it. I mean, otherwise, that is kind of tyranny if you're not even allowed to talk about it and, you know, say, is it good or not? These days in the newspapers, it's like they just throw the words around, like especially Biden is like, you know, it's a victory for democracy that he won the election. You know, that's a convenient thing to say, you know?
And I don't want to take a partisan view, you know, I don't want to entrench myself in, you know, either camp, because I see some merit to so-called left wing and some merit to so-called right wing. I mean, I guess I would say that in one sense I'm economically quite liberal, but socially quite conservative. But I would say that, you know, what does it really, democracy, in its root, demos means, in Greek, means people. And it's all about how the needs of the people should be delivered by the polity, democracy. The demos is instructing the polity. Now, if you look at it, on average, even for a general election, which, by the way, happens once every 5 years here and once every 4 years in the US, you get a turnout of about 50 to 60% if you're lucky. For local elections, right? So that means your roads, your council tax, all those services they're using day in, day out, you can have, in some constituencies, less than 30%. So when you say, oh, this is a triumph for democracy, what, for 30% of people? Who, by the way, might not actually know what's going on. I mean, do we know how the decision-making process is happening in your local? I don't even know who my local councillor is. And I'm up here talking about democracy. I knew who was previously. They had a new election. So there's a lot of propaganda around it. And it seems that they try and justify the decisions that they make on the basis of that democracy. Whereas if you take, you know, the Vedic perspective, Maharaja Vina, I think his name was, Vina, fourth canto from Srimad Bhagavatam, that text we read.
Yeah, with Prithu Maharaj, right, Vena.
From Prithu Maharaj, right. So Maharaj Vena, when he was not fulfilling the needs of society, what happened to him? They mashed man up, literally. They mashed him up. And then when they realized that there wasn't a strong figurehead and there was also other craziness, they put another strong leader in his place as Maharaj Prithu. So I feel that there are ways of delivering the needs of the people and ensuring that the needs of the people are met without giving this veneer of endorsement. When, you know, in effect, there's only 30% of people. And in, you know, Biden's case, he probably ticked half of those boxes himself.
One thing also is like your choice, you're voting. Like, I mean, who do you get to choose? You know, the choice is extremely limited. And also this whole thing about somebody comes into power, like Trump is a perfect example. You know, Trump was in power for 4 years and he had some power to do some things. His whole thing in the beginning was like the wall between America and Mexico, right? And now he's out of power. On the first day, Biden just like changes everything. Like the wall is standing there. You can see pictures of like bits of the wall here and there. So it's like, it just seems like such an ineffective form of governance as well, that it's like, you know, if you're going to go and play a football match, okay, you can go and play the football match and you can play for 5 minutes and then we're going to change and we're going to put somebody else on. And that happens to everybody on the pitch. You know, it's just going to be like chaos. How are you going to make any progress? You know, are there going to be any continuity or achieve something over 20, 50, 100 years? It's just like so much change, no stability. It just seems like a kind of crazy, weird situation.
Well, it's like they start off playing football and then 5 minutes in they change to hockey. And then all of a sudden somebody comes out with a javelin and it's like the opening of the Olympics. And then, you know, they start building a wall down the middle to keep 50% of the people on one side and 50% of the people on the other side. And I think that it just happens with both camps. And they spend these vast sums of money and vast amount of time every 4 years, maybe 25% of the incumbent president rallying, right, giving more unfulfilled promises. And, you know, we don't need to have a history lesson, but I remember when, you know, 10 years ago, maybe about 12 years ago, 2008, 2009, there was actually from the end of 2007, the country went into severe financial meltdown. There was supposed to be some responsibility taken by the big banks. And I remember that a certain head who ended up becoming the prime minister, he made a pledge that a certain big bank would have nothing to do with the issuing of government bonds. He made that as his pledge. This bank will be held to account. The very first issuance of government bonds was through that big bank. There was, his deputy came in on a platform of, we will support, we will, you know, rein in top-up fees. And everyone was like, yes, great. Don't encumber the students with heavy taxes. Allow education to be available for people. And he did a U-turn within as soon as he was offered a big post, he did a U-turn. And where's the accountability? You know, he's got the recognition. And there's so many things which happen even behind closed doors. You know, there in the American Congress, there can be politicians, and it's legal, who are sitting within Congress. They can receive payments from big businesses in order to take a certain line which will favor that business. They're supposed to be representing the interests of the people, but their personal impartiality has been totally compromised. And this is a routine thing. And I guess the final thing I'll say is that on this particular point, you know, we're going to go through an acute period of economic difficulty. You know, we've seen that no business has happened for the best part of 12 months. There will be implications. The government has been propping this up. There will be implications. How severe, only time will tell. But they are spending what they estimate at £250 billion on this HS2. You familiar with HS2?
Yeah.
And I've been, you know, in the course of my work, I go to many sites. I've been to a site where HS2 is coming on one side, and less than 300 meters the other direction, there is the existing train line. And I'm thinking, you're spending £250 billion, and there is a train line less than 300 meters over there. How is, and all the people in that village, all the people I've ever spoken to, they say, we can't understand what the point is. They're tearing through the countryside because money talks, and it's 250 billion now. By the end, it might be 500, it might even be $1 trillion. And like you said, once they're in power, you know, this policy was put in 10 years ago. It will go on for another 10 years. People will come in, take their piece, give their contract, and off they go. And where's the accountability? At the end of the day, you, me, the other citizens, we suffer. The democracy, which is supposed to be helping us out, is effectively £3,000 to £4,000 per person of 60 million people is going to go to a train line, which nobody even wants.
It's a good system, actually, in one sense, isn't it? You come in for a bit, and you have a lot of power and control. You can make the changes that you want, and then you get out quick, and then, you know, you're done, you're safe, you've, you know, got what you wanted, and you can relax for some time after that. Maybe one thing you can say, Krishnarjuna, because I know we're going to speak about His Holiness Bhakti Caru Swami also, is then, I mean, there are definite, visible, potential, you know, virtual flaws with democracy, which I think are quite clear if you just think about it a little bit. Maybe you can just say something about what is the system that the Vedas recommend and that we used to work in the Vedic times.
So I think, you know, and this is a topic which is difficult to summarize, to really do justice to in a short period of time, but I'll try and give a synopsis or an overview. You know, I think in the current climate that we're in, we are trying to put forward an idea that everything can go. Everything goes, and everybody is entitled to do everything, right? And the only way in which we can achieve this is, or the way that it's being approached at the moment, is by giving people trying to cater to people's individual wants and individual demands. You know, I'm such and such, I need this. And the next person says, I'm such and such, I need this. So everybody is thinking about what they need, cater to me. And whoever shouts with the biggest voice is able to be catered to. And often these ideas are put into people's minds based on things such as, you know, what appeals to them in the immediate sense. They paint a picture of what their life will look like, but there hasn't really been any probing into what does that person really need? And is there a way that we can harmonize all of society, you know, harmonize all of society on a deeper principle? And instead of, so I guess the Vedas, rather than using an approach which talks about everybody's whims and wants and trying to cater to a certain thing. It tries to find a system which can harmonize society together in a way that rather than everybody clamoring to take something, everybody can come together to contribute. It's not what I'm owed, what is my right. It's more about what is my responsibility, what is my contribution, and then there is a certain objective for society to come together. The leaders of society, they try and harmonize, they try and engage individuals' talents so they can come together collectively. And one thing that my Guru Maharaj, he used to tell this anecdote about Confucius. Confucius was a Chinese thinker, medieval or maybe even earlier Chinese thinker. And Confucius, his disciple, so to speak, asked Confucius, "Oh, master, what is the difference between a heavenly society and a hellish society?" And Confucius said, not only will I tell you, I will show you what the difference is. And he made this vision of a hellish society. And the disciple was amazed at the mystic powers of his kind of teacher. And he looked at this apparition and he was shocked. There was a whole group of people gathered together around this round table. And it was like a polo, a polo, those mints. It was like a disc with a hole in the middle. And in the middle, on a little stand, there was food. And obviously Confucius from China, so people don't use knives and forks, they use chopsticks. People were outside of this giant polo table, and they were trying to reach over the flames in the middle of the polo and trying to get the food with 6-foot-long chopsticks. And as they went to feed themselves, it was always in vain. You can see I'm actually leaning back here because they would try and lift the food up with the 6-foot-long chopsticks and it would fall down. And if anyone's used chopsticks, you know that even like 6-inch chopsticks are impossible, right? 6 feet up, and then the food would fall down. And the whole society was gathered around this table where the banquet was seemingly outgrossed, and they were all emaciated. And they were all just struggling in perpetuity in this hellish society. And the disciple said, "Oh, master," he said, "change this. Show me the heavenly society. Please, I wish for you to show me the heavenly society. What does a heavenly society look like?" So Confucius changes the apparition. And there, lo and behold, is the heavenly society. And the disciple was shocked. And do you know why he was shocked, Aaron?
Why?
He was shocked because it was exactly the same as the hellish society. They were all eating off a giant mint polo table with a hole in the middle. There was the same plate of food. There were the same giant flames. There were the same people. But the only difference was, in that situation, the people were not emaciated. They were full and content. Now, how did that happen, Tarun?
I don't know. You're telling the story.
It happened because instead of trying to feed themselves in vain, perpetually trying to grab what they thought was theirs, they saw the plight of the person next to them and they used their own chopsticks and they fed the person next to them. They took their ability and they used it in the service of others. And in that way, the whole situation, a seemingly diabolical situation, was harmonized. So the Vedas, through certain constructs in society, I mean, some people call it varnashram, they take the individual's ability. Some people are scholarly. Let them be scholars. Some people are naturally gifted administrators. Let them be the administrators. Some people have a panache for business. Let them become the businessman. Some people are naturally skilled in agriculture or very skilled as artisans. You know, they have an artistic propensity. Don't force him to work in a call center. Let him be a skilled artisan, you know, facilitate that. You know, let the businessman make 10 billion, but don't allow the businessman to make so much money that there's nothing left for everyone else. So engage that propensity and use it together. And anyway, I can go on and on, but I think that is probably the gist of the Vedic understanding.
I think you should actually become a politician, because I think I'd vote for you. Especially if you're not going to go for the HS2.
Well, as long as I don't have to do my campaign online.
Than Boris Johnson, huh?
as long as I don't have to do my campaigning online, because I won't be able to get the damn thing going.
Oh, Instagram, you'd be okay. Okay, that's really good. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. I was doing some research as well. I got some material here about democracy. It's very interesting, but time is limited. And you were just mentioning your spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Caru Swami. So I mentioned in the introduction, which got deleted because we had so many technical difficulties, that you managed to spend a lot of time with your spiritual master, I think in various locations around the world, and work with him on different projects. And as we know, devotees in ISKCON, then sadly last year Maharaj passed away, went back to Krishna. And you're also performing some very intimate services, taking care of things, and very special services that I think only a very dear and close disciple could perform. So could you share something of your experiences with Maharaj? What was that like? Not all of us get to spend time with our spiritual master. How did that change your life? Can you share any stories and speak something about last year about what went on and how you experienced that?
So, yes, indeed. I mean, I can say without any kind of flattery or, filler or just for good words, that the time that I spent with His Holiness Bhakti Caru Swami was the best time of my life. And my wife even knows it. I have a fantastic relationship with my wife and all of my family. But the time that I spent with Bhakti Caru Swami, I feel that it was the most valuable experience. If somebody gave me a blank check to Jeff Bezos's bank account, instead of having that time, I wouldn't think twice and I would have that time again. So that's really how much I treasure it. And in fact, I see that time as having cast a beautiful beam of light over everything that I do. Not only things that I will do in future, but also it allows me to reflect on things which happened in my past in a completely different light. And I think, just as a broad introduction, the time with Bhakti Caru Swami, with Guru Maharaj, because we were talking about how, is it the responsibility of voters? So just to use that example, that you don't understand really the dynamics. I feel that, and you have to be taught really, what does it mean to engage in politics? I think actually what we might also overlook is that even learning how to think about life is a very neglected, and sometimes people don't even understand that principle. You have to learn how to think. You have to learn how to view elements in your life. It would always annoy me when people said, difficult times, they're stepping stones to success. We should really be thankful for that. And I was like, really? Do we really want to be thankful for that? For having to resit my criminal law exam in the middle of summer? Am I thankful for this? It's like, no, I wish I would have got a first. I wish I came top of my class, and I wish I would have got, a contract with the biggest law firm with the biggest paycheck. It's like, what am I going to learn from this? Is this a benediction? But actually spending time with Guru Maharaj, he allowed the dots to be connected, and it was like a light had come on and cast its light, and I could see, yes, if by doing this, this allowed that to happen, and by doing that, that can allow this to happen. And if I treat this circumstance, rather than getting angry with it, if I try and reflect on it, then it can be something constructive. And I don't have to carry this burden of failure, because failure and success in this world are all relative. And the ultimate success is actually an experience which happens beyond this realm. So that's kind of a general thing that, Guru Maharaj imparted that to me. But in terms of, there were some pretty specific events which happened with Guru Maharaj. And anyway, that again is very lengthy, but I'll try and share a few. So actually, my interest in kind of politics and democracy and different ways of thinking about society really were crystallized with in my time with Guru Maharaj. And in the best possible sense, Guru Maharaj had this uncanny knack of being able to appeal to all people in all circumstances. I remember once when we were traveling, because I think I circumambulated the globe a couple of times, traveling with Guru Maharaj and assisting. Actually, more often than not, causing more problems than assisting. And we had left Bengal. Guru Maharaj had just come from this huge program in Bangladesh. There were literally tens of thousands of people. And, you know, West Bengal people speak some English. In Bangladesh, like, it's practically zero. So and I don't speak Bengali. So it was frenetic energy. And, you know, there would be times when Guru Maharaj would be speaking on the mic.
Understand what was going on, right?
I didn't understand. And the people would be coming up, and then somebody would take the bag here. One time, Guru Maharaj was giving an address in front of 20,000 people, and he was mid-sentence, and somebody picked up the mic and walked off with it, middle of the class, and put another mic in there. I was just thinking, and even Guru Maharaj was perplexed, and I was just thinking, what is going on? And I was like, why are you doing this? Couldn't communicate. But it was wonderful. I mean, there was a certain energy about that. And then a couple of weeks later, we were in Washington, D.C., and we were staying with a chap called Henry. He's part of the old American political establishment. And Guru Maharaj was equally, in the same way that he'd captivated the attention of 10, 20, who knows, innumerable thousands of people in Bangladesh, he had this person engaged in such a wonderful way. And that wasn't artificial. It wasn't flattery. It's that Guru Maharaj understood the value of being able to see something from somebody else's perspective. Atmavan manyate jagat. I think there's that thing that we always just see things from our perspective. We're not able to enter into somebody else's perspective. But if you can do that, if you can genuinely empathize with where somebody's coming from, rather than just trying to find fault with it and clash heads, you can really have so much more of a productive outcome than if you're just looking at them and kind of, you know, picking faults. So that was one thing. And I felt that, you know, if more people in positions of influence, rather than thinking, how can I shoot you down? It's how can I understand you and then help you understand me in a better way. So that was one thing. There was another time when I learned quite in a severe way the importance of timekeeping. So, and I'm not sure whether you
know. Always good stories, aren't they, when you get chastised by your spiritual master? At least for everybody else, you know, we enjoy hearing those stories, you know, like, because you're not in it and you're like, oh my God, that must have been really embarrassing. Go on, tell us one then.
So it's quite, and I don't know whether you've had a similar experience yourself, but when you render service over a period of time, it can become quite intense because, you know, they run on like a rocket fuel. These personalities, these sannyasis, they run on a rocket fuel. And mere mortals like you and I, who probably aren't acclimatized to that, it can become overwhelming, you know, days in or months in. So there was a time when we had traveled from South Africa to Hong Kong, stayed 2 nights in Hong Kong, and then gone to Australia. And we'd kind of chopped, and we'd started off from India. So we'd kind of gone, you know, changed time zones going back, and then changed time zones going forward. And like day and night, my name, you know, what's the sky, what's the, everything was out of whack. And I remember waking up and thinking, where am I? I didn't even know where I was. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. And I was like looking at the sky. I was looking at the ceiling. I was looking at I just did not know what was. I must have had maybe 2 hours sleep. And then it all came flooding. Krishnarjunas. I was like, okay, that's my name. HH Bhakti Swami. Okay, that's the boss. You're in Australia. And I was like, oh, we just arrived in Australia. So I ran out of the bed. I like jumped out, hadn't brushed my teeth, anything. And like gumcha flying off. And then Guru Maharaj was just sitting there, like equipoise on the sofa. I didn't know if it was day or night. I didn't know what the day was. And he was just sitting there chanting. And I was just awesome. And I just paid my obeisance. I hadn't unpacked that. None of my secretarial duties had I done. And I was just so embarrassed. I was like, I haven't brushed my teeth, haven't done anything. My alarm didn't go off. And he was just so totally equipoise. And Guru Maharaj said to me, he said, managing time means managing your life. So I took that to heart. I was like, managing time, managing life. So I thought, okay, I've got to get my timekeeping together. So then we traveled back to South Africa about a week later. And I was really making an effort, okay, micromanage all my time. I'm going to do this at this time, this at this time. By this time, I'm going to be asleep no matter what. By this time, I'm going to be up and do my morning prayers. And so, and I was doing quite well. I felt that I was doing quite well. Day after day, I was getting stuff done. I was always up. My teeth were always brushed, you know. And there was one, so I used to open up the door, and I would also carry the bags when Guru Maharaj would leave, you know, because many guests are there, and I try and chaperone Guru Maharaj to the door to open up the door. But in doing so, I also had to carry Guru Maharaj's bags and also help him with putting on his shoes. Anyway, it's a detail. So sometimes I'd be collecting the camera in the bag, but then, you know, Guru Maharaj wouldn't stop. He'd be going off towards the car, and I'd have to like fight people off because they would be diving in. So I walked to the car to kind of through the jostling throngs of people, opened the door. Guru Maharaj sat down. I ran back in quickly. It was just by the door, mind you. Grabbed the bag, grabbed the video camera, jumped into the back, and we proceeded off for about a half-an-hour journey to a program. And as soon as I sat down in the car, it was like this awkward silence. And I said, "Oh, where's this next program?" And Guru Maharaj didn't answer. And then he said, "Are you my guru?" And I was thinking, what? He said, "Are you my spiritual master?" And I said, "No, Guru Maharaj, you're my spirit. So why do I have to wait for you when we are leaving? Didn't I tell you that managing your time is managing your life? Are you trying to manage my time? Are you trying to manage my life?" What was it? It was like, and I was like, "Guru Maharaj, but so you are my spiritual master. You're interrupting me." And for half an hour, the whole way, it was about time management, managing Guru Maharaj's life, and boom, boom, boom. And there were other people in the car as well, like, oh, and they were tutting and shaking their head. And I thought, oh my God. So anyway, we got to the program. It was a wonderful program. Tons of South African people, very nice in that part of South Africa. I'm sure in all of South Africa. And I thought, great program. And Guru Maharaj said some nice words about how I was serving. And I took a little bow. And then we came back and we got back into the car. And I said, "That was a wonderful program, Guru Maharaj." And he said, "So have you learnt, Krishnarjuna, about time management?" I think it was a 2-hour program. How are we still on this topic? And half an hour back. Managing time means managing life. The disciple does not manage the spiritual master's time. And it was literally 3 seconds. So I thought, okay, this is important. I'm going to have to find a way that not even a moment is wasted in terms of how I take care of Guru Maharaj's time. So I have many more stories.
Carry on. Tell us more. Yeah.
So then there's a third chapter to this story. So I really thought, okay, not even a moment can be wasted, right? So we eventually go back to Ujjain. So Ujjain is kind of smack bang in the middle of India. It's a very ancient city where people who are familiar with Krishna and Balaram, they'll know they actually went to school there. And Guru Maharaj made sure that I went to school there as well. In so to speak, he schooled me there. So there is a small, my quarters or my room was kind of attached to.
Was it before you got married and stuff, then when you were traveling around with Maharaj?
Yes, indeed. I was kind of living a monastic kind of life, staying within the ashram, but slightly different. I was more with Guru Maharaj rather than with the rest of the monks, but it was a similar kind of setup, you know.
Okay, fine. Yeah, to clarify.
So I was trying to get up we have our morning prayers at about 4:30. That's what the temple program is for people who aren't familiar maybe with the schedule. So that's 4:30 a.m. So generally you like to be up a bit in advance, especially as a secretary, because if there's any errands you need to run before you go down to the temple, you do that. So I was generally getting up at about 3:45. So that would give me, half an hour or, 20 minutes to get ready, 25 minutes to serve anything, and it was just straight down to the temple. So one morning, it must have been about 3:43. So just before my alarm was due to go off. And again, I'm in my Gamcha. Spent a lot of time in that Gamcha. And I hear the door of the room opening, and it's dark in the room, and there's just like a shaft of light coming in, and I hear Krishnarjuna, and I was like, yes, Gururaj! And I kind of jumped up out of the bed, and he said, are you getting up? I said, yes, 3:45, Guru. I always get up at 3:45. He said, okay, just making sure you're using your time wisely. And I was like, what? So I thought, okay, next day, I'm setting my alarm for 3:30. Okay.
I thought you were going to do 3:43.
3:43, right? 3:43. But I said 3:30. Okay. And I didn't tell anyone this. The next day, and I joke you not, 3:28, 3:29, the door opened, and then Gururaj is there, and he says, Krishnarjuna. Yes, Gururaj. He said, are you getting up now? And I said, yes, Gururaj. Time, he said, don't forget to use your time wisely. And then the door, and then Gururaj would chuckle afterwards. But after I say yes, Gururaj, he'd be like, oh, okay. He'd be like, yes, Gururaj, I'm getting up. And then he'd shut the door. So the next day, I said, all right, this is it. 3 o'clock, no messing about. 3 o'clock, 2:58. The door opens again. Krishnarjuna, and I said, I'll give up. I said, Gururaj, I'm going back to sleep now. So I'm just going to win. I can't win. And that, I swear to you that happened. So I guess what I really learned from that story is that time, two things, is that time and your ability to think and critically think are the two great benedictions of being a human. You know, you can manage your time in such a way. You can think about what you're going to dedicate your time to. And you can also think deeply about how you want to use your time. You can reflect on how maybe you've misused your time, and you can strategize how you want to use your time in the future. And you should also be very respectful of others' time, because you know, that's the most precious commodity that they have. And that's the most precious commodity that we have. And I say that with no doubt a little bit of irony, given that I wasted so much time on Facebook. But I really don't know. Blame Mark Zuckerberg, man. Like, I don't know what happened.
No, don't worry. I don't know what happened either. Everybody else who was there, I could add to the presentation. It's just you. I don't know what. I think Krishna wanted us to come to Instagram. Maybe he wants us to do these things on Instagram instead. I would be able to understand why. We have more of a kind of active audience on Instagram. So let's see. I'm sure it was Krishna's desire.
So you tell me, Taran, should I carry on? What do we have? Well,
mate, I don't want to be. You were just saying about, you know, being sensitive with other people's time. So I'll leave it up to you. I mean, I would be really, really happy to hear, say, one more story about Maharaj. Maybe you could say something about last year if you're so inclined. And then maybe we can call it a day there. I mean, I'd love doing these interviews with devotees. It's just so nice spending time with you all, with my friends, and hearing so many wonderful realizations. So I'd happily sit here all night. But I think we should, you know, do some kind of timekeeping, and then we can do like a 5-hour session one day later.
Let's do it.
But maybe you can just slip in one more. That would be really, really wonderful. Krishnarjuna.
So I guess that if I have time for one more, if I had time for one, what was the last one? I think, yeah, okay, that's a good one. Or maybe that one's a little bit tricky. I'm trying to keep it relevant for all of our audience. I don't want to.
Okay, you don't need to censor them. You can just you're so eloquent. You can explain it in a way that we can all understand. I think.
Okay.
We're all adults.
So one thing which really stood out for me was you know, the importance of having a guide. You know, in this day and age, it's almost, if you have an authority, it's almost considered restrictive. Like, oh, that's like a weight.
Demeaning, right?
It's like it's demeaning. Says less about you. But the whole word educate, at least from an English context, educate comes from the Latin educare, and educare means to bring out what is there within, right? To bring out from within what is there, to like unlock one's particular proclivity and one's particular ability. So again, a lot of stuff happened in South Africa. This is another time in South Africa. Oh no, actually, sorry, this was in Hawaii. So we were leaving Australia for another time, and Guru Maharaj was going to fly back to New York. I'm not a big fan of New York, to be honest. It's a little bit busy. I mean, of course, Srila Prabhupada, he traveled there, and it was very important to Srila Prabhupada, and no disrespect to any New Yorkers, if you do ever watch this video. But I thought, if we've got to go back to the US for Guru Maharaj's green card, why don't we go to Hawaii? And Hawaii has a particular significance, obviously, because Srila Prabhupada used to love translating his books there. Srila Prabhupada is my guru's guru, or our guru's guru, because we are god brothers or god cousins in that sense. And famously, when Srila Prabhupada went on his final journey outside of India, he was due to go to London and then to the US and ultimately go to Hawaii. And my guru was actually serving Srila Prabhupada at that time and was his secretary. So when Srila Prabhupada was getting ready to go, he saw that my Guru Maharaj wasn't ready to leave Vrindavan and leave India. He said, "Why have you not packed?" And my Guru said, Bhakti Caru Swami said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada, my passport is in Kolkata, is in West Bengal. So I won't be able to leave and fly with you from Delhi." Delhi is a city in India, and West Bengal and Calcutta is far, far away, over 1,000 miles. So Prabhupada thought for a moment, and he said, "Okay, I am going westwards to Hawaii. I'm going from London to New York to Los Angeles to Hawaii. I would like you to join me in Hawaii, and I would like you to go eastwards. So you can go from India to Japan to Hawaii, and we will meet there." So no problem. I will be there in about 1 or 2 weeks. So you go back to West Bengal and you go and get your passport. So Prabhupada left, and that was the plan. And so my Guru Maharaj went, and he reported to one of his senior godbrothers, his kind of fellow disciples, who was in charge of the accounts. And he said, "Yes, I have to go. And by the way, Srila Prabhupada said you had to pay for my ticket as well. So you can." So he went off to West Bengal, and unfortunately, during that time, Srila Prabhupada's health kind of diminished, and then he came back to Vrindavan. So my Guru Maharaj never got to go to Hawaii. So I reminded Guru Maharaj of this pastime while we were in Australia. So I said, "Well, rather than going to New York, Guru Maharaj, you've never been to Hawaii. Why don't you fulfill," and Hawaii was so dear to Srila Prabhupada, "why don't you fulfill that kind of instruction?" Guru Maharaj thought for a while, and he said, "That's a very good idea, Krishnarjuna." And inside I was like, yes, yes, yes. I've never been to Hawaii either. Because everywhere we would go, Guru Maharaj wanted to do yoga and physical activity as the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada. And as his guru, Srila Prabhupada said, "No, swimming and wrestling, these are Vaishnava sports." So when Guru Maharaj was serving Srila Prabhupada, he would often swim, and even while we were in Australia, wherever we would go, we would swim. And so I knew, or at least I thought I knew, if we go to Hawaii, we're going to be swimming. So we took a flight, we went via the Philippines, and we were about to land into Hawaii. And I was looking out, and I was like, this is like something, this is like another planet. It was like beautiful palm trees and crystal clear water. And I was thinking, we are going to swim. I wasn't thinking about anything else. We are going to swim every day, swim. The temple is right close to the beach. We're going to swim. So we get there, and it was wonderful to go to where Srila Prabhupada had done so much translating. It was wonderful to see the devotees, some of whom had been there for 40 or 50 years. And every day when we would go on an excursion to meet the devotees, I would carry a bag, and I would make sure that my swimming shorts, Guru Maharaj's swimming shorts, both towels, it's a just in case an impromptu swim came up, we'd be ready to go. So the first day, okay, we were busy, so we didn't get a chance. Second day, had to meet the other god brothers. Third day, we only had one program in the morning. And I was like, waiting, when is Guru Maharaj going to suggest it? Then the fourth day, I was like, okay, this has got to be it. We're only here for like another 3 days. We've already missed 4 swimming opportunities. Got to get into that water, And so we went to a devotee's house who literally lived on a beach. And that beach was a beach that Srila Prabhupada had visited. So I was like, Srila Prabhupada walked on this beach. Let's walk along the beach. Prabhupada had pointed with his cane. You see this big island? This is the size of a Tamingala fish. And I was like, Guru Maharaj, that's the beach where Prabhupada had said, this is the size of a Tamingala fish. It's like a giant fish that can swallow a blue whole whole.
Amazing. Big as an island.
As big as an island. Anyway, maybe they say that that's the last frontier, right? Is the ocean. Only 10% has been explored. So I was sure that this was the time. And eventually it got to the point that I just came out and said it. I said, look, Guru Maharaj, we're here in Hawaii. This is a white sandy beach. Let's go for a swim. He said, okay, you're so attached to your sense gratification. If you want to indulge in your sense gratification, you go swimming or you can stay here. And do you know what I did? I went swimming. When I was in this devotee's house, there was a program going on. I got put the shorts on, and me and my other god brother, we were straight in the water for like 45 minutes to an hour. And Guru Maharaj didn't admonish me at all. Actually, after that, every day after, we went to different places with different devotees, and it just so happened, and Guru Maharaj came in and we went swimming. So what I learned from that is in contrast to how a teacher has to sometimes be strict while teaching. A teacher can also instruct just as powerfully by their ability to show affection and know when to give a bit of birth. It's not always just about hammering it down. Sometimes you have to have the stick, and sometimes there has to have a carrot, especially when it's a donkey like me. So that's what I really picked up from that.
Wow, that's very interesting. That's an interesting kind of intricate pastime. Because it seems like you kind of said no, right? It seems like, you're so attached to your sense gratification, and then you went. I bet you were thinking, right, when you went swimming, like, what's going to happen when I go back? Or did you feel relaxed when you were swimming? What was your feeling?
I think while I was in the water, I felt very relaxed. But when I was putting on, I was thinking that because Guru Maharaj, he would be very informal with me while I was the secretary, because we were with each other every day. He adopted a mood where there was more familiarity, and it wasn't so clear cut at that point what he was saying, because he said it in kind of a jovial way. It wasn't really admonishing. And then afterwards, as I walked back, I thought, okay, maybe I didn't make the right choice. But he was very, very relaxed afterwards, and we actually went swimming for 2 or 3 times. But even if it wasn't so applicable in that time, the sensitivity with which Guru Maharaj had done it, it meant it's just stuck with me. So it might not be swimming, but if, I just want to slack off and waste more time, that thing will always come back to me. And because it was delivered in like a sugar-coated pill, it was another way of really kind of affecting the way that I think. So, teaching to find an expert teacher is a very rare and very valuable thing.
And you were really blessed that you were with your spiritual master. And I've read his book, and I recommend it to everybody. An Ocean of Mercy, right? That's the name. He wrote about his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and I was given that as a gift by Sadashiva Prabhu, and I read it, and it was just amazing hearing about how he spent time with his spiritual master, and you were so fortunate to spend time with him. So, and they teach in different ways. It's said that a sadhu can be as hard as a thunderbolt and as soft as a rose, and sometimes we don't know what we're going to get, and we don't know how they're going to give it, and what that means. Like, he said that to you, but he was soft with you, even though he'd kind of lifted the hoods, but he hadn't bitten. So it's very, very interesting. We'd love to hear so much more, Krishnarjuna. Let's do episodes 2 through to 550 in the next few years.
Done.
We'll upload them to our YouTube channel. I don't know. I'll have to see how if we can upload this from Instagram. Hopefully we'll be able to save it and upload it. Let's see. But thank you so much for spending this time with us. And when you have time in the future, when we're doing these interviews on Friday nights, then come join us. It'll be much more interesting if you're there, people, not having to look at my boring face, and you can...
Thank you, Tarun, for bringing everyone together. I think that this is it's a wonderful, you're always trying to think about the wider community. So thank you for getting the ball rolling on this. Thank you for tolerating all of my many mistakes. And I would love to come and help out if I can be of any help in future. So thank you so much.
When you're writing your book?
Yeah, it's in there. You weren't supposed to mention that, Rod. You don't even mention that to you. But yeah, no, that's in the pipeline. That's in the pipeline for sure.
Is it really?
It is indeed. It is indeed. It's actually been, Guru Maharaj actually encouraged me a lot to write. Even during that time, I used to write many accounts of what had happened while I was with Guru Maharaj. And I think back when Facebook wasn't as popular in terms of a medium, because this is going back kind of 8-9 years, I still got quite a lot of response. People really appreciated Guru Maharaj's instructions and Srila Prabhupada's instructions through it. So I'm now trying to collate a lot of that material. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Also, amend the final, not final chapter, but the final visible pastime of my Guru Maharaj's instructions here on the planet. So yeah, it's in the pipeline.
Wow, I didn't know that. Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, Krishnarjuna. It's always relaxing, nice being with you, and good fun. And let's do it again in the future.
Definitely, Prabhu. You take care of yourself. Thank you to all devotees.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, who joined us. I think we reached people that we wouldn't have reached on Facebook, and we had at least 5 people who joined us throughout the whole thing. So thank you, everybody who took part, and we'll see you next week, Friday night. Hare Krishna. All the best. See you soon.